ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्। ओम शांति शांति शांति। नमस्कार मेरे प्यारे दोस्तों, माय डियर फ्रेंड्स। दिस इज सेकंड वीडियो ऑन Bharti Tirtha Vidyarnaya's Panchadasi. So I start the video number 2 with chapter 1, Inquiry into the Nature of Reality, Tattva Viveka Prakarna. Bharti Tirtha Vidyarnaya's Panchadasi is a classic manual of Advaita Vedanta. Its subject matter, as of all textbook of Vedanta, is the doctrine of the non-difference of Brahma and Atma. The content, Vishaya and aim, Prayojana of the Panchadasi are indicated as Ramakrishna Pandita points out in his lucid commentary in its very first verse. The coordination of the words Sankara and Ananda signifies the non-difference between the cosmic reality, which is the bestower of all blessedness, and the Atma, which is the most lovable and the most desired end. What is empirically known as the individual soul is none other than the transcendental reality. The mistaken notion that the Atma is finite and particular, that it is cribbed and cabined with a mass of flesh suffering from all the ills that an empirical outfit is here to, is born of ignorance. Hence, the supreme aim of the Vedanta is to dispel this darkness, which ignorance, and to disclose the truth of the non-dual reality. The task of Vedanta is the destruction of the veil of amorphous delusion. When the delusion is removed, the truth shines in its own light. When the veils are lifted, there is no more cause for grief. Stripped of all sorrow, the self attains the delight of life and mind, the fullness of peace and eternity. Thus the removal of unreality and the realization of eternal bliss is the twofold aim of Advaita. Inasmuch a book paves the way for this ultimate end, it is useful. The pragmatic test of a treatise on Advaita lies in its use as a guide for the seeker after truth in his quest for the eternal. Bharti Tirtha Vidyarnaya, who was a veritable forest of learning, provides in his Panchadasi such an invaluable introduction and guide to the Advaita experience. The Panchadasi is so named because it consists of 15 chapters which may be divided into 3 groups of 5 chapters each. The first 5, Viveka Panchakam, gives an exposition of the Sat or existence aspect of Brahma. The second 5, Deepa Panchakam, are devoted to the characterization of the real mainly as Chit or pure consciousness, and the last 5, Ananda Panchakam, expound the Supreme Brahma as Ananda, immeasurable and infinite bliss. 2. Pure consciousness, that is identical in all the 3 states of experience. Tattva Vichara, or an inquiry into the real, is an indispensable prerequisite of Advaita experience. Before we can grasp the intricacies of Vedanta, we must be able to discriminate the eternal form of the non-eternal, lead us from the unreal to the real. is the prayer of the Vedic seer. The first of the four requirements that qualify a person for the study of Vedanta is Nitya Nitya Vastu Viveka, discrimination between the eternal and non-eternal. The chaos of empirical life is due to the confusion between the real and the non-real. We regard the phenomenal as the permanent and the permanent as the phenomenal. Knowledge of the truth alone can destroy this mistaken notion. The first chapter of the Panchadasi, entitled Tattva Viveka, is an inquiry into the nature of the real. In this chapter, Bharti Tirtha Vidyarnaya propounds the Advaita view of reality, sanctioned by scripture and supported by reason. Revelation and reason are not contradictories. Intuition does not negate the intellect. It includes and transcends it. It is not a logical but supralogical. Hence, logic and life, rational cognition, and intuitive experience must go hand in hand. Advaita aims at a synthesis of the head and the heart. It is neither a barren intellectualism nor a mere mysticism. It is a darshan, an insight into the real, a vision of truth. The synthetic method of the Vedanta is very patent in the manner in which Bharti Tirtha Vidyarnaya propounds his theme. He does not begin by quoting scripture, but on the contrary, the very first arguments that he advances in support of the doctrine of the non-dual reality are logical and rational. To him, as to Sankara, non-contradiction is the criterion of truth. The logical principle of non-contradiction may not be adequate to assert positively what reality is, but it does not prove negatively what it is not. By an analysis of the three states of experience, Bharti Tirtha Vidyarnaya demonstrates that pure consciousness alone is real, non-contradicted by any experience. In the state of waking, the objects of experience vary and vanish, but their cognition is not non-dual and identical. The objects of sense, such as tuning fork and a bright light, and the stimuli that we receive from them are different from one another because of their mutual exclusion and particularity. But the knowledge of the sensory objects which is other than the sensations is identical and undivided, and hence not differentiated and dissipated. Pure consciousness is not a series of sensations. It is not a collection of particular perishing psychical presentations. The pure self seems to be unaffected by the flotsam and jetsam of ideas which rise and vanish with a particular mood. Presentations by themselves yield no knowledge, but for the unitary principle that connects and controls them, they would be a chaotic mass. In dreams, the objects of waking life are absent, there are present only the impressions of the waking state. The dream world is even more evanescent and fantastic than the waking world, but the pure consciousness that witnesses the dream does not undergo change. If it were one consciousness that were awake and another that dreamed, then there would be no case of identity at all. But in actual experience, we find that it is the same consciousness which remains as witness in both the states. Even in dreamless sleep, there is no consciousness, for when one rises from sleep, one is aware of having had good sleep undisturbed by dreams. This one knows from memory. Memory must have its root in past experience, for memory is only of presentations. There must be someone in sleep who is directly conscious of the absence of knowledge and is quiet, to whom the sleep and consciousness of nothing are presented. In the state of deep sleep, there is not the play of the external world nor the cinema of internal objects. But this non existence of the world does not affect the witnessing principle. It is witness even to the nescience of sleep. Pure consciousness which persists in sleep, though different from its object, which is ignorance, is not different from the consciousness which experiences the other two states. While the states of experience along with their objects change, consciousness remains the same. It is the real and hence the Atma. By its radiance all things shine. It is pure existence, Sat, because it is beyond the measures of time and intelligence. Chit, because it is self-effulgent. Pure consciousness cannot become the object of any other experience, and so it is self-luminous. To say that it is its own object is a manifest contradiction, and assertion that there is another consciousness which cognizes it lands us in infinite regress. How can the self-resplendent reality become the object of any other cognition? How can the knower be known? The Atma, which is existence, Sat, and intelligence, Chit, is also bliss Ananda, for it is the center of supreme happiness. Existence, consciousness, and bliss are not predicates which are attached to the Atma, they are its self nature, Svarupa Lakshana. They are its essence and not attributes. The Atma is not Chit Dharma as the Nyayika thinks. It is Chit Swabhava. It is not that the Atma has existence, consciousness, and bliss, but it is Sat Chit Ananda. We have the testimony of scripture for the truth that the Atma is Brahma. When the three states of experience are recognized to be non eternal, illusory superimpositions, the Atma, freed from its limiting adjuncts, is realized to be identical with Brahma. Then, third topic, Ishvara and Jiva. The bliss nature of the Atma is not fully recognized by all because there is an impediment in the way. Though there is an apprehension of the blissful nature of the Atma, it is not clearly comprehended. Avidya, nescience, which is an aspect of Prakriti, hides the real and clouds its felicity. Prakriti is, in its unmanifested condition, the union of opposites. It is a string of the three strands. The three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, when they are in a state of equipoise united with the reflection of Brahma, are called Prakriti. When the equilibrium is disturbed, there is Prakriti Nasa. There is Prakriti Nasa, destruction of Prakriti, and the empirical world is produced. Prakriti is the prius of creation, the bomb of manyness. It is called pure when the sattva is predominant and impure when the sattva is obscured by the other two gunas. Brahma, which is reflected in the pure sattva, predominates Prakriti or Maya, and which gains control over it becomes the omniscient Isvara. And when the real is reflected in the impure sattva predominant avidya, it is termed jiva. Jivas are many because of the different degrees of impurity. Maya is the causal body, karna sarira of the Isvara, whereas avidya is the causal body of the jiva, which because of its affection for avidya is designated prajna. The subtle body is the effect of five elements which are themselves the manifestations of Prakriti, which with a predominance of tamas by the command of God, ether, air, fire, water, and earth spring forth from Prakriti. From the sattva aspect of each element is produced, all the elements is derived the internal organ Antahakarana, which owing to a difference in function is divided into two, manas mind which deliberates and buddhi intellect which decide. From the rajas constituent present in each of the five elements are derived in serial order. The five cognitive organs and the collective totality of the same rajas present in all the five elements is progenitor of the five pranas, the five senses of cognition, the five of cognitions, the five pranas, manas and buddhi together constitute the subtle body, suksham srira. When the jiva identifies itself with the subtle body, it comes to be called Tejasa, and when Ishvara bestows upon it his conceit Abhimana, he takes on the name Hiranyagarbha. The difference between the Tejasa and the Hiranyagarbha lies in that while the former is of the each form, the latter is of all forms. The gross body, Sthula Srira, is made up of quintuplicated uh, quintuplicated elements. The jiva which confounds itself with the physical body is known as Visva, and Iswara who limits himself by all the gross bodies goes by the name Vaishnara. Though the two principles, the objective and the subjective Brahma and Atma, are identical in essence, they appear to be different and under different names. This perversion is the work of Prakriti. So there is something, this aggregate of ignorance on account of its being associated with perfection, Brahma has a preponderance of pure sattva. Consciousness associated with this is endowed with such qualities as omniscience, universal lordship, all controlling power, etc., and is designated as the undifferentiated, the inner guide, the cause of the world, and Isvara on account of its being the illuminator of the aggregate of ignorance. Fourth heading, removal of superimposition. The evolution of the world order has been described not for establishing its reality but for proving that it is non-eternal. This method is known as in Vedanta as Adhya Rupavada, or an illusory attribution to be followed by subsequent withdrawal. The jiva, deluded by avidya and identifying itself with the triple bodies, thinks that it is the enjoyer of the sweets and the bitter of empirical life. It acts in order to enjoy and enjoy in order to act. Like the worms which are carried away in the current from one whirlpool to another, the jiva is driven from birth to death and from death to birth in the cycle of empirical existence. An escape from this vicious circle is affected by the light of wisdom. When the jiva tears upon the sheaths of ignorance, it realizes its inner reality. The five sheaths which are non-real, anartha, inert, jada, miserable, dukkha, and manifest dvaita cover the Atma which is real, Satya, effulgent, Chitte, bliss, Ananda, and one without a second Advaita. The gross body is the Annamaya Kosa, sheath made up of food. The subtle body consists of three sheaths, Pranamaya, Manomaya, and Vidyarnaya, and the causal body is the Anandmaya. The Atma is lost in this labyrinth of non-reality. To discover it, we must discard the seeds. By the method of agreement, Anvay and contrariety, Vyatireka, the Atma is to be differentiated from the five seeds. In dream, the gross body is negated but not the Atma. The self remains, though the sheath of food is removed of the field. The subtle body is unmanifest in sleep, but the Atma does never cease to exist. The self is not affected by the presence or disappearance of body and mind. That it is imperishable is shown by the fact that it remains constant. When the gross and subtle bodies change and cease to be, the gross body, which plays its chief role in the waking state, disappears in dream, and the subtle body that is manifest in dream ceases to exist in sleep. But the Atma is unaffected by the three states of experience. It is the silent witness, eternal and everlasting. The causal body, which is attendant upon the Atma in the states of waking, dream, and sleep, vanishes in Samadhi, state of absorption. The manifestation of the Atma in Samadhi, when there is the non-manifestation of nescience in its Anvaya agreement, the non-manifestation of ignorance, when there is the manifestation of the Atma, is its Vyatireka, contrariety. In Samadhi, it becomes evident that even the Anandmaya is not the Atma. In the words of Sankara, Anandmaya Atma is an effect and not the unconditioned Atma. It is not the fullness of Ananda, it is counterfeit bliss. While the seeds are finite and particular, the Atma is infinite and eternal. Those sustaining the seeds in the relative planes of existence, it is never identical with them. It is like a thread that courses through and holds together a collection of pearls. Heading fifth, release the end. The Atma, when separated thus from the adjuncts that hide it, realizes its identity with Brahma. Moksha release is the achievement of this deal. It is the realization of truth enshrined in the major text that thou art tat tvam asi. The way to reach the end is through inquiry. The self is to be seen, heard, reflected on, and contemplated. In Samadhi, the ills of samsara disappear. When the transcendental self is seen, all sections cease. The fire of wisdom consumes the deeds and their cause ignorance. Samadhi is called Dharmamegha, the cloud of Dharma, for it showers truth, pours forth in torrents the nectar of virtue, liberated from the shackles of samsara. The self comes to its own, the knower of Atma crosses all sorrow, and never more does he return to the empirical life and get entangled in the messes of Maya. So, chapter this video number 2 ends here. Please like, comment, and share the video and subscribe the channel. Thanks a lot. Namaste, my dear friend. Video number 2 on Panchadasi will start with chapter 2. So thanks a lot. Namaskar.